the 0 to 1 moment is a big deal. And maybe we've now gone from like 1 to 10, and in some sense that should feel like a bigger deal, but I think it doesn't quite to most people. And maybe we go from like 10 to 100 in the next 18 months. But I think like everybody's already accepted that AGI is going to happen, and life is going on, and you're still all out here doing whatever you're doing.
So OpenAI's CEO Sam Altman just sat down with Vinod Khosla, a well-known venture capitalist, and they discussed the future of AI and the economy. They talked about jobs, enterprise adoption, the next leap in capabilities, capitalism, and more. Here were the biggest takeaways. So one of the first things they talk about is the coming disruption. Now, when you hear that word, you probably think about people losing their jobs to AI. And yeah, that's definitely part of it. But in this clip, they're actually talking about the companies themselves, the Fortune 500. Altman points out that AI agents can make entire SaaS companies obsolete, spinning up custom software instantly without the need for massive corporate structures. And this might actually happen sooner than you think. Check this out.
So go a little bit deeper. Like, what happens to today's companies? I gave a talk this morning that I'll repeat for ILPs this afternoon. I figured there will be a faster demise of the Fortune 500 in the 2030s than we've ever seen. In which ones survive and which ones don't is going to depend on what they do, but a faster demise. Do you agree? Do you disagree?
I don't know. Yeah, my instinct would be faster, but I haven't thought about that much. The thing that I've been focused on is what it, most of my time outside of OpenAI I spent with sort of software companies, and I've thought that I have understood the sort of like physics of software companies for a while, but if we're heading towards a world where any software you want can be like just in time written, and if you want to do something, you can just like type something into an AI chatbot and get a great piece of software built. And so instead of like, going to like buy this SaaS company's product or that one, you just say like run, and it happens. That feels like a very significant change that is not that far away.
And we'll come back to the next 18 months and talk about that too, but
big Fortune 500 companies that are like managing complex supply chains, I like the physical world always takes longer, but the software change feels like it's closer.
But 2040 is long enough for the physical world to change enough. That's why I picked the 2035 to 2050 period. 2035 is only 10 years away.
Yeah, I would bet that most current companies fail to adapt quickly enough and get, some significant losses because of that.
This actually reminds me of one of Elon Musk's recent tweets, where he hits on this exact point. He writes, "Join XAI and help build a purely AI software company called MacroHard. It's a tongue-in-cheek name, but the project is very real. In principle, given that software companies like Microsoft do not themselves manufacture any physical hardware, it should be possible to simulate them entirely with AI." So yeah, just take a second to think about that. One of the biggest companies in the world right now, Microsoft, is basically built on one thing: selling software. But if AI agents can just spin up software on the fly in the future, then why do we even need Microsoft and so many of the other massive tech companies? This is basically what Elon Musk and Sam Altman are saying. So that's the long-term threat, entire SaaS giants like Microsoft getting wiped out. But then they pivot to the short term. Vinod asks him what happens in the next 18 months. Altman says we're about to see AI jump from 10 to 100 in capability, but that it might not feel as shocking as you think. Just take a look at this.
5 years from then, if you look forward, which even 18 months from now, the end of 26, how much of a change in AI capability from today to the end of 26 and I'm getting very short term now, versus what we saw between ChatGPT moment and today, 2.5 years ago.
I'm not sure how to like measure that from a vibes basis. I would expect. Well, I think going from nothing to the first version of ChatGPT was maybe like the biggest system shock most people will feel, because it was like, all right, there wasn't this thing at all, and now there's this thing, and sure, it wasn't very good, but the 0 to 1 moment is a big deal, and maybe we've now gone from like 1 to 10, and in some sense that should feel like a bigger deal, but I think it doesn't quite to most people. And maybe we go from like 10 to 100 in the next 18 months. But I think like everybody's already accepted that AGI is going to happen, and life is going on, and you're still all out here doing whatever you're doing. So
Clueless or not?
Well, I think like the actual progress on the merits will be astonishing, but it's expected to be astonishing, whereas ChatGPT was a very unexpected thing to most people. So I don't think it'll like feel as wild, even though the impact will be much larger.
So I kind of agree with him here. I don't think we're gonna get another ChatGPT moment. That 0 to 1 shock has already happened. The cat's out of the bag. But if we quickly see a lot of enterprise adoption and these models start doing a lot of the work humans once did, then I could see a lot more people suddenly paying attention. Still, when it comes to raw capability, going from nothing to ChatGPT will always feel crazier than going from GPT-5 to GPT-6, or GPT-7, or whatever. But here's the thing. One of the leaps that could create that next ChatGPT moment is if AI starts actually discovering brand new science. Not just speeding up research, but literally coming up with new ideas, new theories, and even testing them on its own. Altman believes this is closer than people might think, and here's how he thinks it might play out.
But there's another factor I think about, which is, when do you think AI scientists start doing most of the AI research?
I think it'll be very gradual. It's not a, like let's say today that an OpenAI researcher is using Codex, and it's generating 10% of their PRs, and then 20% and 30%, and then it's like starting to actually go test some new model architectures itself. But it's still like the researcher sort of directing it, and then it's like doing a little bit more of the like, all right, here's the hypotheses to go test. But the researcher is still like, feels like they're just working more efficiently. And the researcher might say, I'm doing 100% of the research. I just have better tools. But if that researcher is now outputting 2x or 10x what they could before, let's say 10x, do you count the AI is doing 90% of the research at that point? Or 0% because it's not fully autonomously doing the whole loop? I think it's going to be this sort of like messy joint acceleration.
So one doesn't have to measure it, but one can look at the rate of change of progress and the acceleration. That's sort of, to me, the ultimate measure. What happens to the rate of change beyond just the scaling laws, which we've just talked about?
I think we will move much faster on the research front every year from here on because we have better tools. And so whether you want to call that AI assisting humans or humans assisting AI or AI doing the research itself, the net effect will be much faster. Not only algorithmic process, but the whole like supply chain. If AI is helping us build data centers faster, if it's helping us develop new sorts of chips, including pretty exotic stuff much faster, I think that all counts. And so, if you look at it as sort of a rate of progress, and as long as the AI is somehow helping that go faster, you count that as the AI doing part of the research, then I think much, much faster.
Yeah.
So it's not exactly clear how much of the scientific discovery will actually be done by AI, but either way, if it speeds up scientific discovery in general by 10x or even 100x, it's definitely going to be something we all feel. Now, going back to the short term, In this next part, Vinod pushes Altman to name some of the first jobs and industries that will be heavily disrupted by AI. His response is a little vague, but he does mention a few that are on the chopping block. Take a look.
I mean, my guess is that in the short term, the AI software engineer will be the most disruptive thing to enterprises. It like the companies are investing the most in that the fastest. There's a bunch of like quirky reasons why it's a particularly great environment. It so directly translates to a current limiting reagent for most companies and a revenue opportunity. So I would bet that will be kind of like the big story for the rest of the year. There will be other things too, but like you will just start to see companies who get good at this or teams that get good at this significantly able to outperform other ones.
Clearly, software development, I think pretty much everybody recognizes is major area, major new area. What about traditional enterprise functions beyond software?
Yeah, I think those are, again, this is not a theoretical thing anymore. Like we hear from companies that are like, I am doing all of my customer support with AI now. I'm doing all of my outbound sales with AI. I'm doing all of my, pick your other vertical. So that's all happening too. I just don't think it'll have like quite the same visible impact. Yeah.
So yeah, coding, customer service, sales, these are all already being disrupted by AI, and it's only going to accelerate. But this is really just the beginning. AI isn't going to stop with those 3 jobs. And this ultimately leads them to the bigger question. What will this mean for society as a whole? I mean, if AI just starts taking everyone's jobs, then what happens? Do the people who own the AI suck up all the wealth? Or does it somehow get evenly distributed, whether by force or just naturally? This is obviously a very complex question, and one that no one can truly answer. But here is Sam Altman's take on it. And keep in mind, this is the guy literally spearheading the AI revolution.
Let's go to sort of the global rollout and how do we ensure benefits of AI spread more globally, more equally. So there's sort of this worry of the rich get richer because then the inside circle, the situational awareness paper talks about there's only a few hundred people who understand how large this change is and how fast it's happening. But talk about the global implications and how we ensure equity and broader usage and spread of the benefits. First, within even this country, because there's an asymmetry to it, and then globally.
So I don't want to be like I resent the question, but I don't want to be all negative on it because I think there is something important to it. But ChatGPT is, I think, the 5th biggest website in the world now. It is, if it stays on its current trajectory, which is hard to do, it will be the biggest website in the world. There will be billions of people that are using free AGI at some point. Everyone will have access to great medical advice. Everyone will have access to great education. Everybody will have the ability to ask for any software to be made, and for free. We will just do it for you. And that is how technology works. And I think capitalism is really great. It does not mean we don't have to correct around the edges. I think we do. I think there's important stuff that we will need to address differently. But on the whole, the way this benefits the world is that technology benefits the world. You put tools in the hands of people, you make them free or low cost, and people do amazing things. And I think there are a lot of people who think that, the world is not ready for this, they can't handle it, there's only a few people that can understand it, there's that paper, there's many others. But I think people really kind of do know what they need, and they're pretty good about learning how to use new technology. And again, this is not theoretical, this is at mass scale happening today. And I think it's quite wonderful. And it's happening because the existing systems and incentives in the world are phenomenal in many ways. Again, there will be some things we have to do differently. If AI starts making massive scientific discoveries, some company will use AI to discover cures for every cancer. And I hope those people get really rich, but also everybody else in the world, I hope they get a cheap cure for cancer. someone uses AI to make fusion commercializable. I hope those people get really rich, but the whole world will benefit from plummeting electricity prices. So I kind of just think like technology on the whole does a lot to spread massive global benefit. And the story of the last couple of 100 years has been that, and we should not be ashamed of that. We should not like try to explain away why what we do is not so evil. Like it's really been great. There will be some things that I think are different about AI. You can imagine a world where compute becomes a crazy scarce resource, and somehow democratically deciding what problems we go after in what order with massive amounts of compute needs a little bit of a different approach than we've had in the past. You can imagine access to compute for, you could imagine like most capital in the world decides it wants to like have access to compute, and that becomes like a crazy expensive, crazy limited thing. That would be bad, but my answer about how to solve that, at least the first try on how to solve it, would be just like make way, way more compute. I think this, gone back and forth, so I'm not confident, but I think this should be a force towards more equality in the world, not further divergence.
So that's really the big question. Does AI wipe out the Fortune 500 and concentrate power in a handful of new giants? Perhaps the new Fortune 50 or even the Fortune 5? Or does it actually level the playing field and make everyone richer? Altman tends to lead towards the latter outcome, and he has history to back him up. But at the same time, he's also incredibly biased in the position he's in. Personally, I think AI will shift us into a new paradigm, one that we can't even imagine right now. But in the short term, there will probably be a lot of growing pains. Let me know what you guys think though. Will AI ultimately be a net positive for society or a net negative? Drop your thoughts below. Also, if you enjoyed the video, drop a like, hit that subscribe button if you're new, and as always, I'll be catching you guys in the next one.